The credit card statement trembled in my hands as I stared at the balance, 23,457. A balance I knew I hadn't racked up because I hadn't even applied for this card, but there was my name, clear as day. Fiona Stout. My name is Fiona, and I just discovered my sister stole my identity. Virginia always gets away with everything, I muttered, pacing my small apartment kitchen while my best friend Hope sat at the counter watching me with concern. Maybe there's been a mistake? Hope suggested, but her voice lacked conviction. We both knew better. A mistake? I laughed bitterly, waving the statement. Like the mistake when she totaled Dad's car and blamed it on me. Or the mistake when she failed college and convinced our parents it was because I wasn't supportive enough. The familiar knot in my stomach tightened as childhood memories flooded back. Virginia, 3 years younger, always the family darling. Virginia who could do no wrong. My phone buzzed. Mom's face lit up the screen. "Fiona, honey," she chirped when I answered. "Are you coming to dinner tonight? Virginia's making her famous lasagna." I gripped the counter until my knuckles turned white. "Actually, Mom, I need to talk to you about Virginia." "Oh?" Her tone shifted instantly. "What's wrong now?" "What's wrong?" I repeated, my voice rising. "What's wrong is that she opened a credit card in my name and maxed it out." Silence crackled over the line. Then, "Are you sure you didn't just forget about applying for it? You've been so busy with work lately." "Mom!" I slammed my hand on the counter, making Hope jump. "I think I'd remember taking out a credit card and spending $23,000. "Well, there's no need to get upset," Mom said in that placating tone I'd heard my entire life. "I'm sure Virginia can explain everything. Why don't you come over and we'll sort this out as a family?" I ended the call and threw my phone onto the counter, where it skidded into a fruit bowl. "Let me guess," Hope said, reaching for my hand. "They're taking her side again?" "They always do." I slumped onto a bar stool. "Remember my high school graduation? Virginia had a minor fender bender that morning, and my parents missed my entire ceremony because they were dealing with her crisis." Hope squeezed my hand. "What are you going to do?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. A text from Virginia. "Hey sis, Mom said her upset about something. Call me, love you." My blood boiled. I could picture her perfectly, sprawled on our parents' couch, playing innocent while probably planning her next shopping spree with my stolen identity. "I'll tell you what I'm going to do," I said, straightening my spine. "I'm going to the police." Hope's eyes widened. "Are you sure? Your parents will—" "My parents will what? Take her side? Defend her? Make excuses?" I grabbed my laptop and opened it with trembling hands. "They've been doing that her entire life. Look at where it's gotten us." I pulled up my credit report, and my heart sank further. There weren't just credit cards. There were personal loans, store cards, even a car lease, all opened within the last year. "Oh my God," Hope whispered, reading over my shoulder. "Fiona, this is serious. Your credit score is destroyed," I finished, feeling oddly calm. "You know what's funny? I've spent my whole life trying to be the responsible one. I got good grades, worked through college, never asked our parents for money. And Virginia—" My phone buzzed again. Dad this time. "Your mother's upset. Whatever's going on with your sister, we can work it out. Family first, Fiona. Family first." The motto that had been used to guilt me into silence my entire life. "Not this time," I said, reaching for my phone, but instead of calling my father back, I opened my contacts and scrolled to the police department's number. "Fiona," Hope said softly, "once you do this, there's no going back. Your family—" "My family stopped putting me first a long time ago." I hit the call button. It's time I started doing it myself. As the phone rang, I thought about Virginia's famous lasagna dinner tonight. How my parents would hover around her adoringly while she held court at the dinner table. How they'd never once asked about my promotion at work, or my new apartment, or any of my accomplishments. "Police department, how can I help you?" I took a deep breath. "I'd like to report a case of identity theft." Hope reached across the counter and squeezed my hand again as I started talking. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to let Virginia's golden child status blind everyone to the truth. This time, there would be consequences. The next morning, I spread documents across my kitchen table like a detective mapping out a crime scene. Credit reports, bank statements, and screenshots of accounts I'd never opened filled the surface. "Look at this," I said to Hope, who'd come over with coffee and moral support. She even used my social security number to lease a BMW. Hope peered at the lease agreement. A 540i. That explains why I saw her driving something fancy last week. My phone had been buzzing non-stop since yesterday. 15 missed calls from Mum, 12 from Dad, and countless texts from Virginia. I'd silenced them all. "You need to document everything," Hope said, pulling out her laptop. "Start a spreadsheet. Times, dates, amounts. The police will need it all." A knock at my door made us both jump. I approached cautiously and looked through the peephole. "Mom." "Fiona, open this door right now." Her voice carried through the hallway. "We need to talk about what you're doing to your sister." I pressed my forehead against the cool wood. "Mom, I'm not doing anything to Virginia. She did this to herself." "She's hysterical. She says you're threatening to have her arrested over some silly misunderstanding." "Silly?" I yanked the door open. "You think identity theft is silly?" Mom pushed past me into the apartment, her face flushed. She stopped short at the sight of my document-covered table. "What's all this?" "Evidence." I closed the door. Every account she opened, every dollar she spent, every lie she told. "Oh, honey." Mom's voice softened to that patronizing tone I knew too well. "Virginia explained everything. She was just trying to help you build your credit score." I laughed so hard I nearly choked. Build my credit? By maxing out credit cards? By taking out loans she never paid? "She's going through a rough time," Mom insisted. "Her boyfriend left her and she—" "Stop." I held up my hand. "Just stop making excuses for her." From the hallway I heard my father's voice talking to someone. Moments later he walked in with Virginia trailing behind him, her eyes red and puffy. "Family meeting," Dad announced, like he was calling one of his business conferences to order. "We're going to sort this out right now." Virginia immediately burst into tears. "Fiona, I'm so sorry. I was going to pay everything back, I swear. I just got a little overwhelmed." "A little overwhelmed?" I grabbed the BMW lease. "This car payment is more than my rent." "I needed reliable transportation for work," Virginia sobbed. "You work part-time at a boutique." "Ladies," Dad interrupted, "let's calm down and discuss this rationally." I turned to him. "Okay, Dad. Let's be rational. Virginia committed a felony. Multiple felonies, actually. That's not my opinion. That's the law." "The law?" Mom gasped. "Fiona, you can't possibly be thinking of pressing charges against your own sister." From the corner of my eye, I saw Hope quietly recording everything on her phone. Smart girl. "I already filed a police report," I said. The room exploded. Mom collapsed onto my couch, Dad's face turned purple, and Virginia wailed louder than ever. "You'll ruin her life," Mom cried. "What about my life?" I shouted back. "My credit is destroyed. I can't get an apartment, a car, maybe even a job. Do you even care?" "Of course we care," Dad said. But he was standing next to Virginia, his hand on her shoulder, always protecting her. "I was going to fix everything," Virginia sniffled. "I just needed more time." "More time to what? Open more accounts? Rack up more debt?" Through the chaos, I heard Hope's calm voice. "Mr. and Mrs. Stout, did you know Virginia also opened accounts in your names?" Everyone froze. Virginia's face went white. "What?" Dad's hand dropped from Virginia's shoulder. Hope turned her laptop around, showing a credit report search she'd been running. 3 credit cards under Elizabeth's name, 2 under Marvin's. All maxed out. Mom's hand flew to her throat. "Virginia." For once, my sister had nothing to say. "I think," I said into the silence, "you should all check your credit reports. And maybe get a lawyer." "You do this to your own family?" Dad's voice shook. "No, Dad. Virginia did this to her own family. I'm just the one who caught her." I walked to my door and held it open. "I have a meeting with the detective handling my case in an hour. You should probably go home and process this." As they filed out, Virginia paused. "Fiona, please. I'm your sister." "Yes, you are." I met her eyes. And that's what makes this so much worse. I closed the door on their stunned faces and turned to Hope, my hands shaking but my resolve stronger than ever. Well, Hope said, that went about as well as we expected. Yeah. I sat down at my table of evidence. Now let's make sure we have everything ready for the detective. Detective Alexander Reynolds had kind eyes that contrasted sharply with his no-nonsense demeanour. He spread my carefully organised documents across his desk, nodding as he reviewed each page. "This is excellent work, Ms. Stout," he said, tapping the spreadsheet Hope had helped me create. "Most victims don't document nearly this well." Victims. The word hit me hard. It sounds so strange to call myself that. Family fraud cases are always the hardest. He leaned back in his chair. But they're also the most common. You'd be surprised how many sisters, brothers, even parents we deal with. A knock on the door interrupted us. Another detective poked his head in. "Alex, those additional credit searches you requested just came in." My stomach clenched. "Additional searches?" Detective Reynolds accepted a thick folder. "Standard procedure. We always look for connected accounts, other potential victims." He opened the folder and frowned. "Oh, that doesn't sound good." He spread out new papers. "Your sister didn't just stop at family. We found accounts opened in the names of several of her former roommates, 3 ex-boyfriends, and..." He paused. "Your best friend, Hope." "What?" I grabbed the paper. There it was. A store credit card opened 6 months ago in Hope's name. She must have gotten Hope's information when she stayed at her place after that fight with her boyfriend. "This changes things," Reynolds said. "We're not looking at a few isolated incidents anymore. This is a pattern of systematic fraud." My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Virginia's been crying for hours. How could you do this to her?" I turned my phone face down on the desk. "Having second thoughts?" Reynolds asked quietly. "No." I straightened in my chair. "Just wondering why I didn't do this sooner." He nodded approvingly. "Good. Because there's more." He pulled out another document. "We found large transfers from these fraudulent accounts to offshore gambling sites." "Gambling?" The room seemed to tilt. "Virginia's a gambling addict." "Looking at these transactions, I'd say a serious one." He pointed to a series of numbers. "These patterns are typical. Small wins followed by increasingly large losses. She was probably using new credit lines to chase her losses." My phone buzzed again. Dad this time. "Your mother's blood pressure is through the roof. Is this what you wanted?" "Ms. Stout," Reynolds was watching me. "Are you okay?" "I need to call Hope." My fingers shook as I dialed. Hope answered on the first ring. "Hey, how's it going with the detective?" "Check your credit report. Now." "What? Why?" "Just do it. I'll wait." I heard keyboard clicking, then a sharp intake of breath. "That bitch!" "I'm so sorry, Hope. I had no idea." "Don't you dare apologize for her," Hope cut me off. "This just proves you're doing the right thing." Reynolds cleared his throat. "Ms. Stout, given the scope of what we're uncovering, we'll need to move quickly. Your sister could face significant jail time." The word jail echoed in my head. Virginia, who'd never faced a real consequence in her life, in jail. Mom's high blood pressure. Dad's disappointment. "If you want to back out," Reynolds said gently, "now's the time." I thought about Virginia's tears, her promises to fix everything, her pleas for more time. Then I thought about Hope, about the other victims who didn't even know yet. "No," I said firmly. "I want to press charges. All of them," Reynolds smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." He pulled out a formal complaint form. "Let's make it official." As I signed my name, my phone buzzed one final time. A text from Virginia. "Please don't do this. I'll lose everything." I showed the message to Reynolds. "Would you like me to contact her directly?" he asked. "Tell her to stop contacting you?" "No." I picked up my phone and typed, "You should have thought about that before you stole from everyone who trusted you." Then I blocked her number. "What happens next?" I asked Reynolds. "We'll bring her in for questioning tomorrow." He gathered the documents. "Fair warning, this will get worse before it gets better. Family pressure, guilt trips, maybe even threats." "I can handle it." "I believe you can." He stood and offered his hand. "We'll be in touch soon." Walking out of the police station, I felt lighter somehow. The guilt was still there, the family pressure a constant weight, but something else was stronger. A sense of justice, of finally doing what was right. My phone buzzed with a new text from Hope. Just filed my own police report, we're in this together. I smiled, remembering all the times Virginia had told me I was the weak one, the boring one, the one who never took risks. Well, look who's taking a stand now. Tomorrow would be hard. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't backing down. The police cruiser pulled up to my parents' house at exactly 9 a.m. I watched from my car parked across the street, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Detective Reynolds had insisted I stay back, but I couldn't not be here. 2 officers approached the front door. Even from here I could see Mom's prized petunias blooming in their perfectly maintained beds. The doorbell rang. Dad answered, still in his morning robe. His face dropped as the officers spoke. He turned inside, calling for Virginia. I can't watch this, I muttered, but I couldn't look away either. Virginia appeared in the doorway, wearing designer pajamas I was now certain she'd bought with stolen money. She started shaking her head, backing away, but the officers stepped forward. My phone erupted. Mom calling. I declined it. Through the open door, I could hear Virginia's screams. "Daddy, do something, please!" Dad stood frozen as the officers read Virginia her rights. Mom rushed out in her nightgown, causing the neighbours' curtains to twitch. "You can't take her," Mom wailed. "She's just a girl." "Mom, please step back," one officer said firmly. I watched as they led Virginia to the cruiser, her mascara running down her face. She looked around wildly, finally spotting my car. "Fiona!" she screamed. "How could you? I'm your sister!" I slid down in my seat, but not before Mrs. Watson next door saw me. Great. By noon, the whole neighbourhood would know. My phone buzzed again. A text from Hope. "It's done?" "It's done," I typed back. "They just took her." "How are you holding up?" Before I could respond, Dad stormed out of the house, heading straight for my car. I sat up straight. No more hiding. He rapped on my window. I rolled it down. "Are you happy now?" he demanded. "Watching your sister get arrested like a common criminal?" "She is a criminal, Dad." "She's family." He slammed his hand on my car roof. "We protect family." "Like you protected me." I stepped out of the car, facing him. Where was all this family loyalty when she was destroying my credit? My future? We could have handled this privately. No, you would have covered it up. Again. Like always. Mom appeared beside him, clutching her robe. "The neighbours are watching, Fiona. Is that what you wanted? To humiliate us?" "The neighbours?" I laughed bitterly. "That's what you're worried about." My phone rang. Detective Reynolds. "Miss Stout," he said when I answered. "Your sister's asking to speak with you." "No, you don't have to. But she's claiming she has information about other victims." I closed my eyes. "Fine. I'll be there." At the station, they led me to an interview room. Virginia sat there, handcuffed to the table, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "5 minutes," Reynolds said, closing the door. Virginia's eyes were red and puffy. "You actually did it. You really had me arrested." "Did you really think I wouldn't? I thought you loved me." Her lower lip trembled. "I thought you'd understand." "Understand what? The stealing? The gambling?" She flinched. "How did you—" "The police found everything, Virginia. The offshore accounts, the gambling sites, all of it. I was going to pay it back." She yanked at her handcuffs. "I had a system, I just needed more time." "More time to steal from more people." I leaned forward. "Like Hope? My best friend, Virginia? Really?" "I was desperate." Tears streamed down her face. "The dealers were threatening me. I owed them so much money." My blood ran cold. "Dealers? What dealers?" She clammed up, looking away. "Virginia, what dealers?" A knock at the door. Reynolds entered. "Time's up." "Wait!" Virginia called as I stood. "Please, Fiona, don't leave me here. I'm scared." For a moment, I saw my little sister again, the one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, the one I'd protected from schoolyard bullies. "I'm scared too," I said quietly. "Of what you've become, of what you might have done to our family, of these dealers you mentioned." Her eyes widened. Don't tell them about... Detective, I turned to Reynolds. My sister has information about threats from dealers. I think you should hear about it. No, Virginia shrieked. Fiona, you promised. I never promised you anything. I walked to the door. Not anymore. As I left the station, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. They're keeping her overnight. I hope you're satisfied. I wasn't satisfied. I was heartbroken. But for the first time in my life, I was also doing the right thing, no matter how much it hurt. The office felt different as I walked in Monday morning. Whispers followed me to my desk. Seems news travels fast when your sister gets arrested for identity theft. Fiona, Lloyd, my boss, stood at my cubicle. Got a minute? Great. This was it. I was about to get fired because my sister's drama had finally spilled into my professional life. I followed him to his office where he closed the door. Have a seat. Lloyd, I can explain. The Thompson account is yours. I blinked. What? The Thompson account. Major client, big responsibility. He leaned back in his chair. I need someone who can handle complex situations with integrity, someone who does the right thing, even when it's hard. You're not firing me? He laughed. Firing you. I just read about your case in the morning paper. You uncovered a major fraud scheme, documented everything perfectly, and had the courage to report it. That's exactly the kind of person I want handling our biggest accounts. Before I could respond, Amy from accounting knocked and poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but Fiona, Detective Reynolds is online too. He says it's urgent. My stomach dropped. I picked up Lloyd's phone. Ms. Stout, Reynolds said, we need you to come down to the station. There's been a development. At the station, Reynolds led me to his office where Hope was already waiting, looking pale. What's going on? Show her. Reynolds nodded to Hope. Hope pulled out her phone and opened a banking app. Someone tried to empty my accounts this morning, all of them. They had all my passwords, my security questions. Virginia's in custody, I said. She couldn't have... It wasn't Virginia, Reynolds interrupted. We've been monitoring her communications. Early this morning, she made a call to someone named Marcus. Based on their conversation, we believe he's connected to the dealers she mentioned. The gambling dealers? Not exactly. Reynolds spread some photos across his desk. We think Virginia was involved with a larger identity theft ring. The gambling was just a cover for moving money. Marcus appears to be their leader. My head spun. So she wasn't just stealing for herself? No. And now it seems this Marcus person is retaliating, not just against Hope. We've detected attempts to access accounts belonging to your parents, your employer, even your high school friends. How does he have all this information? Virginia kept detailed records, Reynolds said grimly. Names, social security numbers, security questions. Everything they'd need to steal more identities. Oh, God. I sank into a chair. This is all my fault. If I hadn't reported her, then they would have kept stealing from more people, Hope said firmly. You did the right thing. Reynolds' phone buzzed. He checked it and frowned. There's more. Virginia's asking to make a deal. She says she'll give up the entire ring, but she wants something in return. What? For you to drop the charges against her. Hope snorted. After everything she's done? I stared at the photos on Reynolds' desk. Surveillance shots of a man I assumed was Marcus meeting with various people, including my sister. If I drop the charges, I said slowly, what happens to the rest of the investigation? We can still pursue the larger case, Reynolds replied, but Virginia would likely get immunity. So, she gets away with it. Again. Not exactly. He leaned forward. She'd have to testify against her conspirators. That puts her at risk. She'd need witness protection, a new identity, a new life somewhere else. Hope grabbed my hand. Fiona, you don't owe her anything. Actually, I said, this might be perfect. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. Virginia's always wanted to be someone else, someone more exciting, more special. Well, now she can be, far away from me and everyone else she's hurt. A knock at the door interrupted us. Another detective entered with a laptop. Sir, you need to see this. Someone just posted all of Virginia's records online. Names, accounts, everything. Reynolds cursed. They're burning her. Get cybercrimes up here now. My phone started buzzing with texts, people warning me their accounts were being hit. Okay, I said, standing up. Virginia wants a deal. Fine, but I have conditions. Reynolds grabbed a notepad. Name them. She gives up everything. Names, dates, accounts. She pays restitution to every victim, even if it takes years. And she disappears. Completely. No contact with family, no social media, nothing. That's harsh, Hope whispered. So was stealing from everyone who ever trusted her. Reynolds nodded. I'll draw up the paperwork. As we left his office, Hope squeezed my arm. Are you sure about this? I thought about Virginia, about all the times she'd played the victim while victimizing others. Yes, it's time for her to face real consequences, even if those consequences mean getting exactly what she's always wanted. A chance to become someone else. My phone buzzed again. A text from Lloyd. Whatever you need, take the time. Thompson account will wait. Handle your family first. Family. The word didn't mean what it used to. Maybe that was okay. The interrogation room felt colder than usual as Virginia detailed her involvement with the identity theft ring. Detective Reynolds recorded everything while I sat in the corner, watching my sister transform from victim to informant. Marcus approached me at the casino, Virginia explained, her voice hollow. Said he could help with my debts if I helped him access certain information. Your sister's information? Reynolds prompted. At first, Virginia wouldn't meet my eyes. It was supposed to be just once, but then he wanted more names, more accounts. Said he'd turn me in if I didn't help. While you were turning in others, I muttered. Virginia flinched. You don't understand. These people, they're dangerous. Marcus has connections everywhere. Banks, credit card companies, even... A knock interrupted her. Another detective entered with a tablet. Sir, we've got movement on the accounts. They're trying to drain everything. Reynolds stood. How many? All of them. Every account Virginia ever accessed. It's like they're scorching the earth. They know I'm talking, Virginia whispered, face white. They're punishing me. My phone buzzed. Dad, all our accounts are frozen, even my retirement fund. What have you done? Before I could respond, Mom's text came through. The mortgage payment bounced. We could lose the house. Are you happy now? We need to move fast, Reynolds said. Virginia, we need names, locations, everything, now. She started talking, words tumbling out like water through a broken dam. Names of conspirators, locations of meetings, details of their operation. Reynolds's pen flew across his notepad. A commotion erupted outside. Through the window, I saw our parents arguing with officers in the hallway. Let them in, I told Reynolds. They need to hear this. Mom burst in first, Dad right behind her. They froze at the sight of Virginia handcuffed to the table. What's happening to our accounts? Dad demanded. Your daughter's associates are attempting to empty them, Reynolds explained. We've frozen everything to protect... Associates? Mom interrupted. What associates? Virginia's shoulders slumped. I'm sorry, Mom. I got involved with some bad people. Bad people? Dad's face reddened. What kind of bad people? Professional identity thieves, Reynolds said. Your daughter was their inside source. She provided personal information for hundreds of victims. Mom swayed and Dad had to grab her arm. Hundreds. Show them, I told Reynolds. He opened a folder and spread out surveillance photos. Virginia meeting Marcus in parking lots. Virginia dropping off documents. Virginia collecting payments. Oh my God, Mom collapsed into a chair. Virginia, how could you? I needed the money, Virginia cried. The gambling debts were too much and Marcus said he could help. Gambling? Dad's voice cracked. You're a gambling addict. Was, Virginia whispered. I'm getting help now, in witness protection. Witness protection? Mom's head snapped up. What do you mean? Part of her deal, Reynolds explained. She testifies against the ring. We protect her with a new identity. New life. New life? Mom turned to me. You're sending her away? She's choosing to go, I corrected, to avoid prison. Dad sank into a chair, suddenly looking every bit his age. All those times you asked for money, Said you needed help with rent, with car payments. Were lies, Virginia finished. I was feeding slot machines and online poker sites. Then Marcus found me and everything got so much worse. Another detective burst in. Sir, we've got locations on 3 of the ringleaders. SWAT is moving in. Reynolds stood. Virginia, we need you to identify them as they're brought in. Will I be safe? Her voice shook. We'll protect you, Reynolds assured her. But first, you need to tell your parents goodbye. After today, you can't contact them again. Ever. Mum started crying. Dad just stared at the floor. I'm sorry, Virginia whispered. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen, I said, standing. And now everyone has to live with the consequences, even you, especially you. Virginia nodded, tears streaming down her face. Take care of them for me? I always have. As Reynolds led Virginia out, Mom grabbed my arm. Fiona, please don't let them take her. Mom, I said gently. Virginia took herself away long ago. We just didn't want to see it. Dad finally looked up, his eyes wet. We should have listened to you sooner. Should have seen what she was becoming. You saw what you wanted to see, I replied. We all did. Outside the interrogation room, I watched through a window as Virginia identified Marcus and his associates in a lineup. Her hands shook, but her voice was steady. My phone buzzed with a text from Hope. You okay? No, I typed back. But I will be. We all will be. Sometimes doing the right thing means watching your family fall apart before it can heal. I just hoped we'd all be strong enough to pick up the pieces. The courthouse buzzed with tension as I took the witness stand. Virginia sat at the defendant's table wearing a plain navy suit instead of her usual designer clothes. Marcus and 3 other ring members sat nearby, their faces hard and cold. Please state your name for the record, the prosecutor said. Fiona Stout. And how do you know the defendant? She's my sister. The prosecutor nodded. Please tell the court when you first discovered something was wrong. I described finding the credit card statement, the mounting evidence, the devastating impact on my credit. My voice stayed steady until I reached the part about Hope. She didn't just steal from me, I said, glancing at the jury. She stole from everyone who trusted her. My best friend, our parents, even her old roommates. Objection, Virginia's lawyer stood. Speculation. Overruled, the judge said. Continue. The prosecutor held up a document. This is a credit report showing over $147,000 in fraudulent charges across multiple accounts. Can you explain how this affected your life? I lost my apartment lease, couldn't get a car loan, almost lost a job opportunity because employers check credit now. I took a deep breath. But the worst part wasn't the money. What was the worst part? Looking at my sister and realizing she knew exactly what she was doing. She wasn't desperate or confused. She was calculating. Virginia flinched. No further questions, the prosecutor said. Virginia's lawyer stood for cross-examination. Ms. Stout, isn't it true that you and your sister have a history of rivalry? Objection, the prosecutor called. Relevance. I'm establishing motive for the witness's accusations. Overruled. The witness may answer. I leaned into the microphone. Yes, we had rivalry. What siblings don't? But I never stole her identity or sold her information to criminals. Isn't it possible you misinterpreted your sister's actions? Perhaps she was trying to help. Help, I interrupted. By destroying my credit? By selling my personal information to identity thieves? By gambling away stolen money? The lawyer adjusted his tie. Your sister claims she was coerced by Mr. Marcus and his associates after she voluntarily approached them at a casino where she was gambling away money she'd already stolen from me. From the gallery, I heard Mom stifle a sob. The cross-examination continued, but Virginia's lawyer couldn't shake my testimony. When I stepped down, Detective Reynolds took the stand next, presenting evidence of the larger criminal enterprise. The defendant wasn't just stealing identities, Reynolds explained, pointing to a chart. She was part of a sophisticated operation that turned stolen information into cash through various schemes. During a break, Hope found me in the hallway. You did great up there. Thanks. I watched Virginia talking to her lawyer. I keep waiting to feel guilty, but I don't. Because you're doing the right thing. Ms. Stout, a reporter approached with a microphone. How does it feel testifying against your own sister? Before I could answer, Dad appeared. No comments to the press. The reporter persisted. Sir, how did you not notice your daughter's criminal activities? I said no comments. Dad's voice cracked. Back in the courtroom, Virginia took the stand as part of her plea deal. She detailed every aspect of the operation, her voice trembling but clear. Mr. Marcus said he could make my gambling debts disappear, she testified. All I had to do was provide personal information from people I knew, family, friends, anyone I could get close to. And you agreed? The prosecutor asked. Yes. Virginia wiped a tear. I thought I could fix everything before anyone got hurt, but it just kept growing. More names, more accounts, more lies. Marcus stared at her with cold eyes. Virginia avoided his gaze. The defendant has provided substantial assistance in dismantling a major identity theft ring, the prosecutor told the judge. We recommend the agreed-upon witness protection arrangement. The judge nodded. Very well. The defendant will be remanded to federal custody pending relocation. As officers led Virginia away, she turned to our parents. I'm sorry. For everything. Mom started to stand, but Dad held her back, shaking his head. Virginia looked at me last. Take care of them, Fiona. Goodbye, Virginia, I said quietly. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us with questions about family betrayal and identity theft. Detective Reynolds helped us through the crowd to a waiting car. The hard part's over, he said, but watching my parents' broken expressions in the back seat, I knew he was wrong. The hard part, rebuilding trust, healing wounds, moving forward, was just beginning. My phone buzzed. A text from Lloyd. Just saw you on the news. Thompson account still waiting when you're ready. You're stronger than you know. Maybe he was right. Maybe we all were. I never thought I'd be doing this, I said into the microphone, looking out at the packed auditorium. Speaking to victims of identity theft, sharing my story about my own sister. Hope gave me a thumbs up from the front row. Next to her sat my parents, both looking older but somehow lighter. Dad even managed a small smile. The hardest part wasn't the stolen money or the ruined credit, I continued. It was choosing truth over family loyalty, choosing justice over comfort. But sometimes that's exactly what family needs. The Thompson account paperwork sat in my briefcase backstage. Lloyd had been right. I was ready for bigger challenges now. Turned out that documenting financial fraud made me pretty good at managing complex accounts. A hand raised in the audience. How did you find the strength to turn in your own sister? I realized protecting her was hurting more people, I answered. Sometimes love means letting someone face consequences. Another hand. Have you heard from her since? No. And I won't. That was part of the deal. I paused. But I heard through Detective Reynolds that she's doing well in her new life. Clean, sober, working an honest job. After the talk, people lined up to share their stories. A young man whose brother emptied their parents' retirement accounts. A woman whose husband opened credit cards in their children's names. You're not alone, I told each one. And you're not wrong for speaking up. Mom approached as the last person left. That was beautiful, honey. Her eyes were wet. I'm sorry we didn't listen sooner. You're listening now, I said, hugging her. That's what matters. Dad joined us, holding a folder. The last of Virginia's restitution payments came through. Your credit score should be fully restored now. Thanks, Dad. I took the folder. How are you both doing with everything? Better, Mom said. The support group helps, meeting other parents who've gone through similar things. And work keeps me busy, Dad added. Speaking of which, how's that Thompson account? I smiled. Actually, I could use your advice on something. Want to grab coffee? Hope appeared with my briefcase. Don't forget you're meeting Detective Reynolds later. Something about consulting on another case? Right. I checked my phone. The FBI wants help identifying patterns in financial fraud cases. Apparently my spreadsheets impressed them. Look at you, Hope grinned. From victim to expert witness. Speaking of witnesses, Mum said quietly, I found this in the attic yesterday. She pulled out a photo, Virginia and me as kids, building a sandcastle at the beach. Before the gambling, before the theft, before everything fell apart. You should keep it, I said. No. Mom pressed it into my hands. You need it more, to remember that doing the right thing doesn't mean you stop loving someone. It just means loving them enough to let them face their choices. My phone buzzed. A text from Amy at work. That blog post you wrote about identity theft went viral. News stations want interviews. Looks like you're making a difference, Dad said, reading over my shoulder. I'm trying. I tucked the photo into my briefcase. Someone has to speak up for the victims. Show them they're not crazy for wanting justice, even from family. Especially from family, Hope corrected. Outside the auditorium, Detective Reynolds waited by his car, ready to help catch some more bad guys. Actually, I said, I've been thinking about your offer to train other victims to document fraud. Could we start with these people? I gestured to the audience members still lingering nearby. He smiled. Already got the paperwork ready. Mom squeezed my hand. Virginia would be proud, you know, of who you've become. Maybe, I said, but I'm more proud of who I didn't become. Someone who chooses comfort over truth. Someone who mistakes enabling for love. Coffee first, Hope announced. Catching bad guys later. As we walked to the cafe, I thought about Virginia building that sandcastle with me. We'd worked so hard to protect it from the waves, not realizing some things aren't meant to be protected. Sometimes they need to wash away so something stronger can be built in their place. My phone buzzed one last time. Lloyd. Thompson client loved your proposal. Said they've never felt safer with their finances. You free to discuss expansion plans tomorrow? I smiled, typing back. Absolutely. Turns out I'm pretty good at protecting other people's assets. Ready? Hope held the cafe door open. I looked at my parents, at Detective Reynolds, at the folder of restored credit in my hand, at all the pieces of a life rebuilt from truth instead of lies. Yeah, I said. I'm ready.